So my background originally was in theater, and I realized at some point that there was a lot of overlap between visual arts and theater. And I'd always loved drawing and loved performing almost equally. And I think that one of my biggest conflicts in high school and my early education was trying to figure out how to push those two things together, to have them be in the same place. And I actually went to college initially for theater. So in the process of taking classes in theater, I started doing more costume design work, more drawing, and also in that process realized that I wanted not only to be able to draw the costumes, but to control the entire world. To be the performer, the actor, to be the director, to make the props, to paint the sets. I wanted all of it. And at some point I had a really thoughtful and kind advisor that said, I think what you want to do is art. I started taking more art classes. I met people in the printmaking department in my undergraduate, and I realized that they didn't have to be separate. I didn't have to choose between theater or art. I could incorporate art into theater and vice versa. I am Guen Montgomery, and I am an interdisciplinary artist whose work is driven through concept. I use primarily printmaking, performance, and installation. My early years in terms of my creative development, I think I was highly encouraged to do creative and bizarre things. I was a fan of making videos. I made television commercials. I made outfits out of plastic bags. I was allowed to wear costumes to school on days that weren't Halloween. You know, they sort of let me be a little bit zany because I was naturally. And so that definitely allowed me to develop the creative side of my personality. I got an award in elementary school for doodling on all of my math papers, quizzes, and tests, and it was sort of a way of acknowledging that while I wasn't doing well at math, I was clearly very interested in something else. And I remember my mom being a little bit bemused and a little bit sort of like, well, that's sweet, you know, and she was very proud in one hand that the teacher recognized that I was doing something weird and fun, but also a little bit, I think, frustrated that I wasn't just doing what I needed to be doing. And so I think that that has carried over in our relationship. My mom is always really happy to see me doing what I'm interested in and what I have a passion for and succeeding in it. But she's also a little bit dismayed sometimes at what it is that means. I've been really thinking about the weight of words lately. I think with the current changes in our administration, in terms of the recent election, I see our society moving towards an emphasis on imagery, and with things like emoji and abbreviations like TLDR, too long didn't read. And in some ways, as an artist, I love that. I love that we're becoming visually literate and using imagery so much and that it's so prolific. But at the same time, with the recent administration changes, I see us as a society not taking the weight of words as seriously. I pulled out the current president's tweets from before the election and during. All of the tweets that relate to making promises, to what will be delivered, what's going to happen. All the things that sound a little bit related to being a savior or changing things for the better, the good news, essentially. And so I'm making this fly paper piece where I print these long strips of text, which are just tweets in a sort of floral, over-the-top cursive text typeface, and they look from a distance kind of like they might be constitutional documents because of the way the type reads. But then you look closer at them and they're actually these tweets, and they'll be dipped in a honey solution and hung with all of these dead flies attached to them. So you get the sense of them as fly paper, as something attractive, as something that people are seduced by. So that'll be one of my upcoming installation pieces. The series of hats up here are part of a ongoing collection that I'm creating for a alternate persona. Her name is Dolores Pemberton, and she's a character that's an amalgam of my aunts, my mom, other women that I know, and she really exists for me to create collections, to create collected objects like you would see in an estate. And it's something that I've always been interested in. A lot of my work reflects collections or people's valued possessions. I see collecting things as an attempt to arrest time, to stop it and hold on to it. This sort of fear of our own mortality. These are the things that are important to me and they will outlive me. And I also love the idea of people being interested in things in multiples. Like I collect swans or I collect cats, you know? So I created her so that I could then become the person that makes all these things and go back to being the person that owns all of these things. So you get to have both sides of it. So those hats are a ongoing project where I will be making these kind of humorous animal hats that eventually would be shown with the rest of her collected objects. I think there would probably be a video performance aspect too, where I would be wearing them, so you would get to see the physical object and you'd get to see this performed persona as well. I want those pieces to feel like something you would find in someone's closet. I want them to have a kind of over-the-top femininity and sweetness while also being a little strange, and I think that the wool and fiber does that really well. It's both really great at depicting animals because it is furry, and it also is interesting to me in the way that Jeff Koons talked about fibers, with the social structure being reflected in the way fibers interlock in each other. So thinking about women and collections in terms of society and social structures. Yeah, I definitely am concerned and interested in matching material to the idea. Like with the fly paper that I'm making, I have this image of sticky curling strips of paper, you know, and then from that I'm thinking about what is the perfect thing that you would read, that you would encounter on these. So in some cases this vision of the material will come first, and then I'll fit other parts to it. I usually will envision what kind of image. I already know that I'm making this series of irons and that I want them to have these domestic scenes. With these pieces I was thinking a lot about my animals, bringing in the carcasses of these kind of beautiful objects now that they're dead, animals essentially, and from that I wanted to give them not quite a memorial, but a little bit of a nod that I am complicit in that process by letting my cat outside, or what have you, that there's a partnership between me and the cat in that death. So I love the shape of the iron face. I think it's a really amazing and beautiful surface, and I decided that I was going to start creating one of these every time an incident like that happened. So each of them can correspond to a specific incident. So if we want to talk about the genesis of it, then maybe I have come downstairs and I find that there's a dead mouse on the ground, or shrew most frequently, and I will take pictures of it. I'll document it really well because then I need source imagery to draw from. I usually draw from a source. I make sketches from that source, and then I will and this is actually a similar process to printmaking in general, I'll then transfer the drawing to the surface of the iron. I will coat the iron in a ground, a hard acid resist ground, and then I actually carve into that ground using a pen tool or other scribe. I'm removing the coating selectively. So kind of like there's scratch boards that you might have seen, kind of scratching away into that, leaving shiny areas where the ground's been scratched away in the shape of whatever creature it was. I would then submerge the iron in acid. In the case of aluminum, ferric acid works to etch. There are other materials made. These face plates are sometimes made with chrome or stainless steel, but as long as it's aluminum, I can just use ferric acid, which is, although an acid, not super dangerous. I am careful with it though. And then after submerging it for a period of time, I take the ground off and the image is etched into the iron. After that, I will do some experiments with ironing with the piece or pressing the piece against paper to see if I can get it to show up. I've had some mixed results with that, but it's an interesting sort of ongoing experiment that I'm doing. I notice that I'm still making work about sort of similar concepts as I used to when I was younger. I'm still really interested in family, still really primarily interested in identity creation, how we create the characters that we are. But I think that I've become more rigorous in my practice. I identified at some point that I was going to have to just be willing to figure out whatever it is I need to learn to make a specific thing in a specific way. So I've definitely developed a sense of sort of chutzpah, or willing to go the distance and do whatever needs to be done to learn that technique. I also hope that it's becoming more sophisticated, you know, as I get older and I refine my understanding of what my work is about, and I do master more of these things more completely, because it can be a little bit tricky to be a jack of all trades, if you will. The end of that is master of none. So I'm working towards a point where I have mastery over multiple things, even if it's not everything. I can feel like those things are all equally, at an equal level of mastery, which is not a short-term goal. You know, that's something that I'm still developing. I feel like performance and printmaking are there. There's still a lot for me to learn in fibers, sculpture, things like that. And I think that's why I'm drawn to working in this multidisciplinary ways, because I actually really love learning, and I like that process of becoming better at something. So that's hopefully how I'm developing. I hope I'm getting better.